We look forward to seeing the new vehicle very soon. Very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
Next is item F10. This is a request for approval of a real estate purchase agreement with Phoenix Management Holdings, LLC, IV 4-5, for surplus parcels at the DPW yard. I am seeking your concurrence in the attached real estate purchase agreement with Phoenix Management Holdings for surplus parcels at the DPW yard as identified in the attached map, subject to final legal descriptions. This is a land contract for $425,000, the proceeds of which would be placed into the Township's general fund. Principals of Phoenix Management, I think we have Leo Gonzales here tonight, will be in attendance to answer any questions that you may have. This land was advertised for sale by the Township, I want to say, in late 2017 or early 2018. Mr. Gonzales was the sole respondent to that, and since then we have been having discussions off and on regarding the potential sale of parcels which are outlined in the map towards the end of following the land contract itself. This is land that, as you may recall, the history behind this, the property on which the DPW building sits was deeded to us by Dematia towards the tail end of the construction of the office park there. There's a great deal of, I don't know if there's, any way you can rotate that, Bob?
Yeah.
Do you have the ability to do that?
Yeah, a second.
So the, one more time.
Let's go the other way, I think.
That's good. That's the way. That's good. So the current DPW building is located pretty much in the middle of your map there. To the south is the yard, which is being used by the DPW for storage of debris and whatnot, and that is not even fully utilized to this day. There is ample land to the west of the DPW building, which is in the first hash-marked area. There would also need to be an easement coming off of Port Street to accommodate that site, and then there would be another easement necessary to accommodate the smaller parcel to the east, the southeast of the existing DPW building. So the building itself is not impacted by this. There's no talk of leasing or touching the building in any way. The storage shed similarly is not impacted by this, nor is the cell tower, which we have sold and promised an easement for that facility as well. So before you is the proposed areas that would have to be, this would be the subject matter of the land contract. This property has also been appraised. It was appraised back in June of this year. So we believe we are getting a very competitive price for this parcel based on this appraisal. And I guess that would be it from me. If Mr. Gonzales wants to talk a little bit more about it, or if you have any questions, why don't we have Leo come forward?
Kurt, while he's coming forward, I just want to make sure I understand. So there's parcels on either side of the current DPW, and they would be purchasing.
Leo, do you want to comment on that? Does anybody have a laser pointer tonight that we can steal?
Have what?
Laser pointer?
Testing. Okay. Thank you. Members of the board.
There you go.
Mr. Clinton, yes, a little explanation on this piece. It's approximately 13 acres, and the outline.
Hang on.
You go back.
Hang on, I got to get my bearing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good map.
Where is it again? No.
Bob, could you pull up? Could you go with that?
Which way?
Can you do the aerial, Dave?
Bob's doing that.
He's got
I got
that.
it.
Okay.
You want to go to satellite?
Oh, wait, Plymouth Township, right there. What does that say?
Oh, no, Plymouth Technology Park. Can't find it.
Should be back in.
Oh, there you go.
Is it by the railroad tracks?
To the left. Right there.
This one here.
Yeah, there you good. Nice picture.
So a little background on this, and then, and I'll go back and answer the question, or maybe I get, provide an explanation. Back about 6 months ago, we had a full wetland study done on this property, just to get a handle on what was buildable and what was not, in order to kind of start creating some areas that we felt we could build buildings on. So after we did the wetlands, we laid in the buildings, looked at the parking requirements, and then, of course, looked at the access, because this parcel to the east has no direct access to Port Street unless we use the current Port Street access that's there now. So the thought was, well, let's utilize the current curb cuts that we have here and just create easements. They'll still be owned by the DPW that service their trucks coming and going. And then the future customers of the 30,000 square feet on the west side can be serviced by that ingress, and the future customers, or tenants, I should say, of the 15,000 square feet could be serviced by the access drive to the east. Both of those that are, well, it's not shown now, but in your first exhibit that was shown, they were shown in yellow. So with that, we kind of looked at what your current conditions were as it relates to your stormwater management. Because at some point, when we go back into Wayne County, they're going to ask us, well, what are you going to do with your stormwater? And what's the circumstance, potential to ask us, what's the circumstances of your stormwater right now? As best we can understand, is stormwater, there was a area that was created as a runoff. I don't think, we couldn't find any plans that really showed that was ever a formal detention pond built here. But there is a fair amount of buildable land down there on the southeast corner, which is basically east of the cell tower, that we feel we can utilize. And as we get further into it, we'll understand what we're going to be able to do with the stormwater. But I do feel that based upon at least the preliminary findings with the wetlands and the access points, and of course, we have to have Wayne County sign off on the access point, so long as Port Street's a Wayne County road, along with these stormwater issues. Sanitary and water, we feel I'm sure is on site, so we'll have access to that. But we try to minimally, but just generally overall, we tried to look at what we were going to implement here and try to minimally not impact the DPW's operation. From a circulation standpoint, giving them a dedicated yard, and we feel we've achieved that, but are certainly open to suggestions throughout the planning process as we go through this, as to addressing what their needs are and making sure that what we plan here is a good fit for both parties.
Bob, could you just pan up a little bit more so we can, no, okay, then pan down. Right, stop, okay. Yeah, a little bit better perspective on the southeast parcel.
So where will the DPW put its sand and gravel?
In the back right now, where they currently are, the land that's subject to the agreement to the west of the building is currently woods and a lot of spoils. We were told by the DPW staff that the spoils are from Township Park, from the pavilion and the parking lot project, that everything was kind of scraped off and then the dirt was dumped here. So that would be obviously Leo, your responsibility to clear all that up, so we wouldn't have to. Right now, it's a bit of a stormwater problem for us because it's eroding over time. But there's ample size. If you look at the DPW building itself, there's more than double, not double, but the footprint of the DPW building more than covers the area to the rear. And that's really where they're storing most of their stuff right now, sand and rocks and wood debris, concrete debris, et cetera. But the land to the west of the building, to my left, would be either unused or it's covered with debris.
Can somebody point to the current storage area? And that will be retained by the township?
Yeah, it's just to the south of the immediate building there. Not that. That's the storage shed, which is also untouched, yeah. And you can see how we have things dumped there already.
And that would no longer be the township's property?
No, that would be.
This part
Yeah.
going south of it would be, just draw a line where you see the parking lot there on the far west side, and then come down, and then go over, that area right there is going to be where the building is going to be. But the stuff directly south of the building will still be ours.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm just struggling. Can you go back to that?
The site plan. Maybe the site plan would be
The
helpful.
site plan with the hash marks on it? Yeah, very good. Right there.
All right, so I wish we had a pointer, but I'm trying to understand what will we be left with?
What's not covered in the hash marks?
What's not covered in the hash?
Okay, so the building, the,
Space behind it.
and then the space behind it.
Oh,
What about there to the right,
hang on a second. Maybe this will help.
the property that's to the east? What property is being sold in the east?
Just east of the tower. It's just really some lowland and shrubs right now, if you were to go out and look at it.
Yeah, this one's even worse.
Yeah, I got,
Yeah, go back to the other one. It's more of a topo and wetlands map. Okay.
that's a big decision. Are you sure we don't want to review? Have you guys seen this before?
Yes.
Other people on the board have?
The,
I haven't seen did you pass out the appraisal for this particular piece?
I
Or was
think
it
I did back in the summer, but
I saw it back.
proprietary.
Well, yeah,
But it's not-
you're here every day though, right? So you,
It's not one piece, though, is it? I mean, we're selling off
Two
two
parcels.
yeah,
Right.
Two parcels for,
they're not contiguous.
they're not contiguous.
And was the appraisal for
That
both
space.
parcels?
Yes.
And how much was the appraisal again?
We believe that we're getting a very good price for the property. So again, the properties at issue are the ones that are covered by the hash marks, which indicate a building and parking lot structures underneath it. So again, the DPW building itself is untouched, other than, I guess, part of the parking lot that is not used very much right now, and it's also we were using it for the last couple of years to store surplus vehicles and vehicles that we were going to sell as surplus. Because remember, that parking lot at one time serviced it wasn't even intended to be the DPW parking lot. That was for economic development. The police operated out of there at one point, and you had really Jim Anowitz's, DPW operations and his office were there, and they had meetings. I remember going to meetings when he was based out of that building. So that parking lot is much bigger than what is currently needed.
So that
so
long
what's your-
driveway that goes down to the parcel on the east, who owns the land to the right of that?
We do.
This is part of the sale.
No.
Oh,
The
sorry.
part of the sale is what's the hash mark properties.
Oh,
But this is a very odd-shaped property because it was basically a throwaway from it was the tail end, it represented the tail end of the Dematia project in the early 1990s. So see, Bob, right now, if you stay on that one, like where your pointer is right now, that's pretty much where the old Dematia property ended. We were at the end of the road back in those days. And then it was afterwards when the rest of the project was opened up. But this was seen basically as surplus property for Dematia, and it was deeded to the township for the purpose of the DPW building.
So why is it that this land, the proceeds from this property can be put in the general fund? When we visited this previously, it could not.
So this is a building.
Well, no, because this involves surplus land, so it's comparable to what we did on the cell tower site. The cell tower site was on land. The land was deeded to us by Dematia. We've had a discussion in the past about the building itself and what would happen if we sold the building, or even if we rented the old community development offices, which are attached to the building. You know, we've had this discussion, and it is, I have grudgingly come to the conclusion that if we were to sell the DPW building, or if we were to rent the excess space, that money would go into the water fund, because arguably water money is what was used to build the building. But there's no such restrictions on the land. We've had that discussion, and we've now established a precedent with the sale of the cell tower.
So what do you plan to do with the money?
Jerry and his kids.
It would go into the general fund. I mean, it would go into fund balance. It could be used for future projects, but I mean, it's not like it's earmarked for anything in particular.
Well, plus it's a land contract.
Yes.
So we would get $90,000 upon closing, and then this 6%. How's that work? You want to describe that, Mr. Gonzalez?
The agreement provides for a $90,000 down payment with payments over the next 2 years. What this allows us to do is to secure the commitments that we need to build these buildings, at which time then we'll come back and pay off the remaining balance, whichever respective parcel or tenant comes in first. If it's the 30,000 square foot, we'll come in and pay it down and carry on with the remaining balance. But I think it only provides for a 2-year window.
Two-year window for the entire balance, regardless of whether the parcel has a buyer, the second parcel?
Well, no, it's paid off in 2 years.
Right. So the amortization schedule is based on what? 30 years, 5 years? And there's a balloon payment is what it is then.
It is, what was our payments on that, Kevin?
It's $3,000 per month until 2 years, the 2-year anniversary of the date of closing. The entire amount of unpaid principal and interest is due.
And usually with a land contract, you include the payment and amortization schedule in the land contract
Traditionally,
to avoid confusion. I'm already
Traditionally, that's done.
confused.
Traditionally, that's done. I think the reason it's not done in this case is because there's a 2-year payoff. So it's, the entire amount will be due and payable in 2 years. Contract also indicates that the seller, which is the township, will have to provide the buyer with the unpaid balance, or what amount of the $3,000 was attributable to principal and what was attributable to interest.
So if you so at the end, when you pay all remaining principal and interest, how are we calculating the interest on the unpaid balance each month?
It will be on, there'll be,
And it should be in writing in here.
it's 6%.
It is in there.
It's going to be
Show
6%
me.
per annum.
I missed it.
It's in
Page 8,
paragraph 2 of the
Paragraph 2.
land contract.
Exhibit B, paragraph 8, on the bottom, paragraph.
Upon
2
execution, the deposit of 5,000, is that the one?
No, in the land contract, not the purchase
2,
agreement.
terms of payment, Is that after? I can't page remember 8, where that yeah, was. page 8.
I agree with Chuck. That has to be spelled out in the amortization schedule so that it isn't open to interpretation what the balance will be and what the monthly payments will be. Because there's 7 people here, and I bet you we'd all come up with a different calculation of what 6%.
But it says the balance is to be paid monthly payments of $3,000, rate of 6% per annum, second anniversary, everything's due.
But it doesn't say what the 6% is.
Right.
Each month, you've got to calculate the interest on what part of the unpaid balance and how frequently. You're going to do it each month. This is not clear. Number 2 also is blank.
So the land contract doesn't have.
Buyer is of which you're going to put
When you pay
$425,000.
$3,000 a month, you start out at the beginning and you calculate what the amount is. It's a math issue.
Right, so that's why you put the math in.
No, but I understand. I'm just as an example, is the $3,000 principal only, or is it included?
No,
Oh, okay, yeah,
because
that's
you
different.
you start out with the,
See, it's blank.
you have $90,000 already paid. So you take the 425 minus the 90, the first month is that amount you pay 6% on, and then 6% of that amount, of that $3,000 is interest, and the other portion is
It's
principal.
6% divided by 12, right?
I understand how to do the math. I've done this for 35 years. And this is, you can write it all out, but that's what these words mean. These words mean that if you would like an amortization schedule, you can put one together.
We
but
can
it
do
doesn't-
that. It's not
because you put-
complicated to do that.
The words mean the same thing.
Put it in the motion.
Okay.
I have another question about who is paying to have this land surveyed?
We incur all the cost for the wetlands, the
So the land survey
surveying.
is going to be paid by, where does it say that in here? Paid by, on number 6, it says survey and investigations.
Yeah, at the end of that paragraph, all costs associated with the due diligence are incurred by the buyer. I don't have my agreement in front of me.
What section?
It would be under section 7 or section 6?
6, maintenance,
Six.
fire.
And that's comparable to what we're doing right now on the 5 Mile property with Hillside. They're doing all their survey work and environmental work and,
So what's on the screen is the land contract.
yeah.
So if we go back to the purchase agreement, Mr. Dorshevitz, paragraph 6.
Yeah. So that is the purchase agreement right there.
Yeah,
These are solely the buyer's expense.
And then after you're done reading that, let's look at 7.
So everything we do within this due diligence period thereafter.
210 days, what's the logic behind 210 days?
Well, what we have to do is go back to the county on this. Well, we have to formally go through your planning commission, submit a plan, submit a set of drawings to the county, and get their approval on the stormwater management, the sanitary, the water. Of course, that would go through your engineer and get sent on to them.
So number 7 has many conditions: zoning approval from the township, wetlands. In other words, it has to be completely approved, including a tax abatement. So if one of these things is not done, do we refund your money?
You refund my deposit. If I terminate,
Now, what about the
You-
interest and the payments you've been making?
no.
$3,000 a month.
No. The land contract doesn't go into effect until after we waive on our conditions to purchase. So once I enter into a land contract, then I'll have gone through all the due diligence period, secured our approvals through the planning commission, potentially could go on to the board for final approval, depending upon what the approvals are, if it's a special use condition, and then get my approvals from Wayne County. Once I get all those approvals, then I will be prepared to close, at which time then the land contract payment is made, or land contract down payment is made, and then subsequent monthly payments would proceed thereafter.
So for $5,000, you're going to tie up this property for 210 days?
Correct.
It's not being sold now.
Right. But
Whether I have 5,000 or whether I have $10,000.
this is a very unusual deal where the township is financing. Usually we get paid cash for stuff, but, right, which is nice. But I don't know. I think we need to postpone this and study this more. I'm confused that,
Okay.
Well, I have just a couple more questions. So one of the conditions was that you would secure, during the review period, you would secure IFT abatements, tax abatements. So if you can't, and we would have to approve that. So if you can't secure the IFT tax abatements, which I don't know how you could because you wouldn't have the
the tenant.
the tenants at that point.
But you're hoping to have a tenant before you.
I'm hoping to secure the tenant.
You want
because
us to carry the load while you're looking for the tenant for $5,000 bucks.
We're going to secure a tenant or tenants because it's two buildings there, or potentially the 30,000 square foot building could be multiple tenants. And proceed with the site plan approval through the planning commission. Then we're going to proceed with that and get the approval from the county. The tax abatement would only be to put us on the same playing field if we're competing with a tenant that's looking at another community that's offering it. If I can secure a tenant that wants to go into this building and they are not looking, the tax abatement is not for my benefit, it'd be for the tenant's benefit. If I can secure a tenant that's willing to go into these buildings without an abatement, that I would be willing to revisit that. I put it in there only because we very well could be in a situation where there's other communities that we're competing with, and these tenants these regional tenants and national tenants will shop around to communities and look for the best deal they can get, whether it's from the developer like ourselves who's doing a build-to-suit or any other aspects of this deal as part of their consideration when they come into a community.
Now, one of your requests is that the stormwater, that the county approves all stormwater going to somebody else's property, DPW, right? Which is highly unusual.
Not highly unusual. What I'm going to do is you already have a detention pond. You already have an area that your stormwater is going to go in. What I'm going to propose to them is I'm going to memorialize or at least formalize maybe creating an area within some of the uplands here that will be additional stormwater area that will satisfy the Wayne County stormwater requirements. I have to leave open the option that the county may come back and say, well, we want you to put both the stormwater that the DPW has and your system together. I'm okay to entertain that. I'm okay to do the engineering on that. So to that point, I have contemplated that I may have to come back and get an easement from the DPW on some additional land that you guys have in order to put stormwater in there that is not part of the parcels that I'm buying.
So you might have to dig a bigger pond, is what you're saying.
Where
Or-
is that detention basin at?
You don't have a detention basin. That's part of the problem here.
Ah.
We don't think it was
I thought
ever
you just said there
formally,
was one. Set up.
I can't see anywhere, any of the drawings where there was actually a detention pond created. What we think might have happened is just the
Wayne County Stormwater Ordinance did not exist until 2000. This parcel was assembled in the late 80s, early 90s.
then that's,
So where's the stormwater from the site draining now?
Towards the railroad tracks and towards the wetland area to the
So
east.
it just drains off the surface? And
You can
it's
see it.
absorbed by the vacant land there?
Which is exactly where you want to build.
no, outside of that. The building footprint on the east side is outside of the, outside the wetlands area. And that's probably what created those wetlands over years too, because it was just flushing down in there and it just continued to expand. There's a creek, I think there's a drain that runs through that area there. And there must be a low-lying area off of that drive that comes through here off to the east. And I've been out there in areas at times after it got done raining and see the flow of the water that just naturally gravitates towards that area.
The way this is set up is if there's I'm sorry, Jack, but if let's say there's an economic slowdown or something like that, all you as the buyer have to do is drag your feet and this will never get executed. So your skin in the game is limited. I don't get it.
Not limited.
There's so many moving parts.
it's not limited in as much as we have to diligently move to a set of site plans, submit plans to the planning commission, go to the county for approvals. These engineering costs are not at a limited amount of costs. You know, we could spend $50,000, $60,000 in engineering costs and architectural costs and applications and
But those would
and
be
review
sunk
fees.
costs. Those would be sunk costs. If we had a 9/11 event or something and the economy crashed, you wouldn't have, the way to get out of this contract is to drag your feet on number 7 and just not implement it. But
You
you,
know-
would se- you could, but you could sell it today to somebody else for cash, maybe, if you found them,
It's been out there in the world now that it's been for sale.
Is there a sign out there?
We
There's no sign?
We advertised it
Advertised it for sale,
Where did you advertise it?
all over. Everyone knows about it.
where we advertised.
Everyone knows about it? I'm a
Okay, Chuck,
elected
let's-
official. I didn't know it was for sale.
We're getting
We're getting in the
off
weeds
track.
because this is a very detailed, complex selling agreement.
Yes. It's what happens.
Once the assets are sold, they're sold.
Okay,
No, that's what happens when you get creative.
okay,
Well, that's okay, then let's have a work session and talk about it so we're smarter.
let's have a motion.
I feel naked here.
Well, I have a couple questions. If I could, on the purchase agreement, paragraph 1, it says 4 acres. I thought, I heard you say.
said 13.
13 acres.
The original parcel, the current parcel is 13 acres. We're only buying 4 acres, and the 2 crosshatch pads accumulate to approximately 4 acres.
And then on the land contract, paragraph 1. City of Central Line,
Pardon?
Oh, yeah.
the buyer,
Yeah,
blah,
no,
blah,
that's
blah,
a good,
City of Center Line.
that's a good catch. No, that was,
Okay.
that's a typo.
And then 46555 Port Street, that's the entire property, right? It's not just these 2 parcels.
It is, but if you refer back to paragraph 1 of the purchase agreement, it says that we're going to legally describe the new parcel to be purchased and the easements that will be made a part of this agreement. And Kevin and I have agreed that we'll have some provision in there that such legal description of the parcels to be purchased have to be mutually agreed upon. We don't have the luxury of having the 2 parcels that I'm contemplating going to contract on a legal description at this point because of where we're at in this stage.
Sorry, I have 3 more questions. Kevin, the first one's for you. I don't quite understand under a land contract, maybe you can help me understand, when ownership would actually turn over to the new entity. And the reason I ask that is, right now, the property is owned by Plymouth Township, which means we're tax exempt, we pay no taxes.
Correct.
At what point would the new buyer be responsible for taxes?
What would happen under the General Property Tax Act is when the property is no longer used for a public purpose, it is subject to taxation. So even if the legal title to the property is with the township, which is what it would be under the land contract method of selling the property, because the property would be no longer used for a public purpose, it's not subject to exemption. What will happen is when the land contract is closed, the seller, or pardon me, the buyer has 45 days to file a property transfer affidavit. The property transfer affidavit gives the assessor notice to mark the property as no longer being publicly owned and used for a public purpose. So then it would be subject to taxation.
So during the 210-day period, it becomes taxable?
No,
No.
only when equitable title changes hands.
And
When it's
then-
not used for a public purpose, which would probably be upon closing on the land contract.
And then what happens when, what happens if they default on the land contract?
The township has 2 options if there's a default. The first is called a forfeiture. A forfeiture is a streamlined process whereby the township could recover the title to the property but could not recover the purchase price for the property. If the other option would be what's called a foreclosure. A foreclosure it's a more complicated process. It's done in circuit court as opposed to district court. where forfeiture is done. I guess the perceived advantage of going through foreclosure is that the township, if they prevail on the foreclosure action, they not only receive title to the property back, but they would also have a judgment for the unpaid amount of purchase price on the contract. However, if you do go to circuit court and try to do foreclosure, there's a 6-month right of redemption period, which means that the buyer would have 6 months to redeem the property or come up with the entire purchase price. And if they do that, then they're going to own the property.
So, and once the land is no longer used for a public purpose, then it goes on the tax rolls, and that's a one-way street, right? So if the township ended up with the property back, the property would be on the tax rolls because you can't reverse that.
I think you can. There's nothing in the General Property Tax Act, I think it's section 211(7)L, that states it's exempt if it's owned by the township and used for a public purpose. So if the township did receive the property back through either the forfeiture process or the foreclosure process, the township, I guess, would be filing a property transfer affidavit and indicating that now the township is the owner of the property and would be subject to the exemption again.
Now, one of the beauties of a land contract is that it used to be was very easy. I didn't even think you had to go to court
Yeah.
to get the property back for a land contract.
Oh, yeah.
Writ of restitution in the 35th District Court.
Yes. You would get
It
it's
was
called
very simple.
the summary proceedings. It's an expedited process.
90 days.
Yes.
Okay.
Nope, still
Bob,
not.
Mark, yeah, I know.
Bob, can you bring that map back up?
The photo or
The aerial view?
the photo or
Set,
the?
yes. So all that, where your cursor is right now, basically, we will still own that land. Is there anything wrong with that land? Why did you choose not to buy that or develop that?
It's wet, it's in a lowland area, it's really not developable, but it could be used and should be used as the detention area for the building to the southeast.
And then my last, it's not really a question, but I guess it's a comment. We had done an assessment, an appraisal of the entire land. It goes back, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something like that. And they gave us a number of comparable properties along this Port Street and a couple others. And when I took a look, there were 6 or 7 of them. When I took a look at those, all of the land was valued at roughly $140,000 per acre. That would put the price tag at this closer to $560,000, not $425,000.
So you multiply it by 4.
Correct.
Well, there's
Just-
4.
It's just what the land, for each of those comparables, what the land was worth per acre.
We're on the money, though. With the appraisal.
So why don't we have that analysis here, that piece of paper that tells us this was the appraisal and this is why we think this is the right price?
Because we are we're attempting to sell property in the best interests of the taxpayers for maximum value.
That's why you bring the analysis so the rest of the board can understand it. Because we're stumbling around. Most of us haven't seen the latest appraisal, which was the last 6 months, maybe?
Well, even in the packet, this isn't the land contract. This isn't the current one.
There's a different one?
Yeah, this has a big blank in the middle, which blank shall be played to.
There were revisions made to that contract on the 12th of this month.
So what was actually in our printed packet? I don't remember.
It was probably version 3. The latest version that was done on the 12th is version 4.
Is there something that makes this day, this special meeting, the need to do this, or is there some deadline that you have? Because it's a special meeting, it's the last item of the meeting, the last item of the year.
It's not a conspiracy, Chuck.
No,
We
I know,
called a
but
special
that's-
meeting because our normal meeting would be on Christmas Day.
That's what we usually do, is in the old board, things got done at the
We're not
last
the old
minute.
board.
See, the board packet, it's blank. So the record the official record doesn't even have the price in it.
Well, it's $425,000.
Well, minus the 90,000.
Yeah.
So on your land contract balances, it says full consideration sale, buyers to purchase of which shall be paid to sale simultaneous. So on that should say $90,000 shall be paid upon the execution of land contract. That was just not added. Certainly would be part of the.
And your motion is also to, subject to final approval by the township attorney. That would all be incorporated in there.
It's a one-way street.
Okay, any other comments from the public? All right, can I have a motion?
Now, we're going to add to the motion, if I'm understanding. that there's-
Amortization schedule.
That there will be a, let's see here.
I would do on legal descriptions, amortization schedule, and approval
Yeah,
by the
legal-
township attorney.
Mr. Supervisor,
Yeah, Mr. Clerk.
I move the Township Board approve Resolution 2018-12-17-100, authorizing the Township Supervisor and Clerk to sign a real estate purchase agreement with Phoenix Management Holdings LLC for surplus parcels located at 46555 Port Street, subject to final agreement and legal description and amortization schedule and approval by the Township Attorney.
Motion's been made by Clerk Vorva. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Heitman. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Borba, yes. Trustee Kermy?
No.
Treasurer Clinton?
No.
Trustee Heitman?
Yes.
Trustee Dorchevitz?
No.
Trustee Dempsey?
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. Look forward to working with you on this project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lou.
Who says all the dramas in Lansing at this time of year? All righty, thank you very much. Next up is supervisor and trustee comments. I just want to wish again a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. This has been an outstanding year for all of us here on the Township Board and all of us here at Township Hall. We've gotten a lot done. I don't want to turn this into a State of the Township speech, but we have accomplished a great deal this year. And I think we are in a much better place than where we were a year ago, and the future looks very bright for all of us. And that's a great gift that we can all share during this Christmas season. So again, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas. And I also want to give a shout out to my daughter Claire, who turns 20 today.
Happy birthday,
And I
Claire.
cannot believe how fast time goes, but boy, it really does. So happy birthday to Claire. Bob?
None.
Gary?
None.
Jerry?
Again, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to everyone. And again, I want to thank everybody on the board. I think we've done a really sterling job in management of the township's finances. You'll be seeing coming to you here in the next month or so, finally, the single audits for 13, 14, and 15, and report from Plant Moran. And so I want to thank, again, all the department heads from in our public safety for helping with that, and also Treasurer Clinton and his staff in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Clinton.
I'm good. Happy holidays.
Jack Dempsey?
Yes, I just have a question about the 2019 meeting schedule. What's the process for that, and when would be our next meeting?
Yeah, and it'll be in our first meeting in January. It'll be set, and we took notice of the things that Trustee Kermy was talking about.
We're going to approve
Yes.
sometime in January.
January 8th,
First meeting.
Approve what? I'm sorry.
The schedule.
schedule.
Oh, okay. At the first meeting on January 8th. Got it.
So there's 3 meetings in January, just to remember.
Yeah, right now, we're looking at January 8th. January 15th would be a study session on goals, 2019 goals, and then there would be a meeting on January 22nd. Mr. Kermy?
Merry Christmas.
Excellent. Any comments or questions from the public? at this time. And we now need to go into a closed session. So it is, according to my clock,